Opening. Tea leaves, when you drop them into hot water, do something remarkable. At first, they resist. They float on the surface, tight and curled, clinging to the shape they held in the tin. But slowly, as the heat reaches them, as the water softens their edges, they begin to unfurl. They open. They sink. They release everything they've been holding: color, fragrance, flavor, essence. Flavor, essence of the water, which was nothing but water a moment ago, becomes something alive. But here is the thing most people never notice. The tea leaf has to let go of its original form to become what it was always meant to be. If it stays curled, if it fights the water, if it refuses to open, then the water stays water, and the leaf stays a leaf, and the cup holds nothing but bitterness and missed potential. You are the tea leaf. Your life is the water. And right now, tonight, I want to talk about what happens when you finally stop clenching. In the early 20th century, there lived a man in China who was, by any measure, one of the most gifted human beings of his generation. His name was Li Shutong. He was a painter, a musician, a calligrapher, a poet, a playwright, a seal carver, and a pioneer of modern art education. He composed songs that are still sung today. Over 100 years later, he mastered every art form he touched. He was wealthy, celebrated, adored of millions of followers, and a Netflix documentary. And then, at the height of his fame, at the peak of his powers, he walked away from all of it. He shaved his head. He put on a patched robe. He ate one meal a day. He slept on a wooden board. He became a Buddhist monk, and he never looked back, not once. He took the name Hongyi, and for the remaining 24 years of his life, he lived with almost nothing, studied the precepts with extraordinary rigor, and produced some of the most luminous spiritual writings of the modern era. When one of his former students visited him years later and asked, "Master, do you ever regret it?" Hongyi smiled and shook his head. "If I had clung to who Li Shutong was," he said, "there could never have been a Hongyi." That answer contains everything I want to share with you tonight, because the question it addresses, can I let go of who I think I am in order to become who I am meant to be, is not a question about monasticism. It is not a question about religion. It is the most urgent, most practical, most terrifyingly relevant question of your entire life. Let's deep in it together. 1. The prison you built yourself, attachment and the clenched fist. Hongyi once wrote, "Cling to a single thought, and you become imprisoned by that thought. Release it, and your heart becomes free." It sounds simple. It is not simple because the thoughts we cling to don't feel like prisons. They feel like truths. They feel like identity. They feel like the ground beneath our feet. And letting them go feels not like freedom, but like falling. Think about the attachments that run your life right now, not the obvious ones, not the addiction to your phone or the craving for sugar, the deep ones, the ones so embedded in your psychology that you don't even recognize them as attachments. The belief that you must succeed in your career to be worthwhile, the conviction that your relationship must work out or you'll be broken, the insistence that your children must achieve certain things or you've failed as a parent, the desperate need to be understood, to be recognized, to be valid. These aren't goals. Goals are healthy. You set them, you pursue them, you adjust them when reality changes. These are fixations, rigid, unyielding demands you place on the universe, accompanied by the silent threat, "If I don't get this, I will suffer." And the universe, being the universe, does not negotiate with threats. It simply continues being what it is, fluid, unpredictable, indifferent to your demands, and you suffer, not because life is cruel, but because you are gripped. There is an old image that captures this perfectly. Imagine holding a handful of sand. If you keep your palm open, the sand rests there, warm present, yours to enjoy. But the moment you clench your fist, the moment you try to possess the sand, to guarantee that it stays, it begins to pour through the gaps between your fingers. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it flows. And when you finally open your hand again, all that is left is a red, aching palm and a few stubborn grains stuck to your skin. That is what attachment does. It doesn't protect what you love, it crushes it. It doesn't secure your happiness, it guarantees your misery. Because attachment is, at its root, a refusal to accept reality as it is, a demand that reality conform to your preferences. And reality has never, not once in the history of the cosmos, cooperated with that demand. The Buddhist tradition calls this root cause of suffering upadana, clinging. It's not the desire itself that causes pain. It's the clinging to the desire, the white-knuckled insistence that this particular outcome must happen, or I cannot be okay. The Diamond Sutra puts it with devastating precision. Let your mind arise without fixing it anywhere. A mind that arises without fixing, without clinging to any particular thought, outcome, or identity is a mind that is free, not empty, not passive. Free. Free the way the sky is free. Clouds pass through it, joy, grief, anger, love, fear, hope, and the sky remains the sky. It doesn't chase the clouds. It doesn't fight them. It simply is vast, open, unperturbed. Hong Yi didn't abandon his artistic career because art was bad. He abandoned his attachment to being an artist, his identification with the role, his dependence on the applause, his belief that Li Shutang the genius was who he fundamentally was. When he released that identity, he didn't become less. He became immeasurably more. He wrote, "Let go and you receive. Let go and you endure. Let go and you can carry more. Let go and you truly possess." Letting go is happiness itself. This sounds like a paradox, but it's actually a mechanical truth. When you clench your hand, it becomes rigid. It can hold one thing, but it can't reach for anything else. When you open your hand, it becomes flexible. It can receive, it can give, it can gesture, it can create. The open hand is not weaker than the fist. It is infinitely more capable. 2. Yesterday is dead. The radical freedom of starting over. There is a phrase that Hong Yi borrowed from an older text and made his own through the sheer force of how he lived it. Let all that came before be as if you died yesterday. Let all that comes now be as if you were born today. Read that again, slowly. Yesterday you died. Today you were born, not metaphorically, not as a pleasant affirmation to put on a coffee mug, as a radical, lived reality. The person who made those mistakes, dead. The person who suffered that humiliation, dead. The person who was betrayed, who failed, who said the wrong thing, who wasted those years, dead. Gone. Finished. And the person sitting here right now, reading these words, breathing this breath, brand new. Unburdened, unwritten, free to choose anything. Most people cannot do this. Most people carry their past the way a prisoner carries chains, dragging it behind them everywhere they go, feeling its weight in every step, hearing its rattle in every quiet moment. The argument from 3 days ago still echoes in their chest. The failure from last year still colors their confidence. The wound from a decade ago, or 2 decades, or 3, still throbs in the dark. The human mind is extraordinary at many things, but its greatest talent may be its ability to keep the past alive long after it should have been buried. I once knew a woman, let's call her Sarah, who spent 15 years trapped in the story of her childhood. Her father was an alcoholic. Her mother was passive, frightened, unable to protect her children from his rage. Sarah grew up in a house where love was unreliable and safety was a fantasy. And when she became an adult, she carried that house with her into every relationship she entered. She chose partners who were emotionally unavailable, not because she wanted to, but because the pattern was so deeply embedded that unavailability felt like home. She sabotaged the relationships that were healthy because intimacy without danger felt foreign, suspicious, wrong. She lived in a constant state of hypervigilance, scanning for threats, bracing for betrayal, building walls so high that no one could get in and nothing could get out. She knew what was happening. She'd been in therapy. She understood intellectually that she was repeating her parents' script, but knowing it and releasing it are 2 entirely different things. The knowing lived in her head. The pattern lived in her body, in her nervous system, in the architecture of her identity. She was the girl from that broken home. That was her story. That was her truth. And as long as she believed that, as long as she clung to that identity, the past wasn't the past. It was the present, relived every single day. Then one day, she encountered Hong Yi's words, "Let all that came before be as if you died yesterday." And something shifted, not dramatically, not all at once, but with the slow, quiet certainty of a key turning in a lock that had been rusted shut for years. She realized that the wounded child was real, had been real, but did not have to remain the defining reality of her adult life. The past had happened. She could not undo it, but she could stop living in it. She could stop letting a story written by a frightened 7-year-old dictate the choices of a grown woman. She could, in a very real sense, let yesterday die and be born today. This is not denial. Hong Yi was not suggesting that we pretend the past didn't happen. He was suggesting something far more radical, that we stop letting it control us. You can remember a wound without reopening it every morning. You can acknowledge a failure without tattooing it on your forehead. You can honor a loss without building your entire identity around the hole it left. The Buddhist teaching of impermanence, anicca, tells us that nothing is fixed, not your circumstances, not your emotions, not your identity. The person you were 5 years ago is not the person you are today. Different cells, different thoughts, different understanding. And the person you are today is not the person you'll be 5 years from now. You are not a statue. You are a river. And a river that tries to freeze itself, that tries to stop flowing and hold its current shape forever, is a river that dies. When his student, the famous artist and essayist Feng Zikai, visited Hong Yi in the monastery and struggled to reconcile the austere monk before him with the dazzling artist he had once known, he asked, "Master, don't you miss who you were?" Hong Yi replied, "If I mourned yesterday's Li Shutang, I could never live today's Hong Yi. Every morning, I wake up new. You can too. Every morning, you wake up new. Not because something magical happens in your sleep, but because the continuity you feel, the sense that you are the same person who went to bed last night, is, at the deepest level, a story your mind tells you. A useful story, most of the time, but a story nonetheless. And stories can be rewritten." 3. Frost on the grass. Making peace with impermanence. Hong Yi wrote, "A human life is like the sun setting over the western hills. Wealth and glory are like frost on the morning grass. The evening sun, beautiful, warm, golden, but sinking. The frost, glittering, crystalline, breathtaking, but melting. Everything you see, everything you touch, everything you love, everything you've built, all of it is the evening sun. All of it is the frost. Not permanent, not fixed, not yours to keep." This is the teaching that most people resist more than any other. We can handle the idea of letting go of past pain. That makes intuitive sense. But letting go of the good things? Letting go of success, of beauty, of health, of the people we love? That feels not like wisdom, but like cruelty. Why would I want to accept that everything I cherish is temporary? Isn't that the recipe for despair? No, it's the recipe for freedom. And here's why. When you refuse to accept impermanence, you live in a state of constant, low-grade terror. You have a beautiful relationship, and you're afraid of losing it. You have a successful career, and you're afraid of the market shifting, the industry changing, younger competitors overtaking you. You have your health, and every unexplained ache sends a bolt of panic through your chest. You have money, and the stock market's daily fluctuations become a proxy for your emotional state. You are, in effect, trying to hold water in your cupped hands, watching it leak through your fingers, and feeling more anxious with every drop that escapes. But when you accept impermanence, when you truly internalize the fact that everything changes, that loss is built into the structure of existence, that the sunset is beautiful because it doesn't last, something profound happens. You stop clinging. You stop hoarding. You stop white-knuckling your way through every good moment, terrified that it will end. Instead, you inhabit it. You feel it fully. You taste it. You let it be what it is, a gift, temporary by nature, precious precisely because it will not last. The Diamond Sutra captures this with one of the most beautiful passages in all of world literature. All conditioned phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, shadows, like dew and lightning. You should contemplate them in this way. dreams, illusions, bubbles, shadows, dew, lightning, not nothing. No Buddhist text says the world is nothing, but not solid either, not permanent, not graspable. The dream is vivid while you're in it. The bubble is iridescent before it pops. The dew is exquisite in the moment before the sun burns it away. The teaching is not don't enjoy these things. The teaching is don't try to freeze them. Hang Yi was born into wealth. His family was among the richest in Tianjin, a major port city. He grew up wearing the finest silk, eating the most exquisite food, living in spacious courtyards filled with art and music. He knew luxury intimately. He didn't renounce it because he couldn't appreciate it. He renounced it because he saw through it. Because he understood that the pleasure of luxury was real but impermanent, and that building your identity on impermanent pleasures is like building your house on sand. The tide will come. It always comes. There was a businessman I read about, enormously successful, a self-made fortune in the hundreds of millions, who lost nearly everything in the financial crisis of 2008. He couldn't accept it. He had defined himself so completely by his wealth. His net worth was his self-worth, that when the money vanished, he felt that he had vanished. He considered ending his life. It was only when he encountered the Buddhist teaching of impermanence, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, that he began to understand. The money had never been him. It was a condition, temporary, dependent on 1,000 factors beyond his control. He had mistaken a passing phenomenon for a permanent identity. When the phenomenon changed, his identity shattered, because it had been built on something that was never solid. He rebuilt his life, not his fortune, his life. He started small. He worked quietly. He found, to his surprise, that a simple meal tasted better than the 5-star dinners he'd grown accustomed to, that a walk at sunrise was more nourishing than the view from the penthouse, that 3 genuine friends were worth more than 1,000 networking contacts. I used to own everything and feel empty, he said. Now I own almost nothing and feel full. That's the paradox of impermanence. It doesn't take away joy, it deepens it. Because when you stop clinging to the permanence of a beautiful moment, you can finally be present in it. You stop taking photographs to prove you were there and actually be there. You stop worrying about whether the relationship will last and actually love the person in front of you. You stop calculating your net worth and actually live your life. Hang Yi, in his final years, living in a broken-down room, eating 1 meal a day, owning nothing but a robe and a bowl, wrote these words, flower branches full in spring, moon full in heaven's heart. A man with nothing, seeing fullness everywhere. Because fullness was never about what he owned. It was about how he saw. 4. The mirror of others, forgiveness as freedom. Hang Yi taught, forgive others with the same generosity you use to forgive yourself. Hold yourself to the same standard you use to judge others. Read that twice. It's deceptively simple, and it cuts deeper than almost anything else he wrote. Think about how you treat your own mistakes. When you mess up, when you say the wrong thing, miss a deadline, lose your temper, make a bad decision, what do you tell yourself? I was tired. I was stressed. I didn't have all the information. I'm only human. You grant yourself context. You grant yourself compassion. You see your failure as an event, not an identity. Now think about how you treat other people's mistakes. When your partner forgets something important, when your colleague drops the ball, when someone cuts you off in traffic, what do you tell yourself about them? They're careless. They're selfish. They're incompetent. They're a bad person. You strip away context. You deny compassion. You see their failure not as an event, but as a revelation of who they fundamentally are. This asymmetry, infinite patience for yourself, zero patience for others, is the root of almost every relationship conflict you've ever had. And the fix is not moral willpower. It's not try harder to be nice. It's a fundamental shift in perception, recognizing that every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. They have fears you can't see, wounds you can't imagine, pressures you've never faced. When they act badly, it's rarely because they're bad people. It's usually because they're scared people, or tired people, or people whose coping mechanisms are different from yours. Hang Yi practiced this with astonishing consistency. When he was a teacher at a prestigious school before becoming a monk, a student stole from him. He didn't punish the student. He didn't even confront him directly. Instead, he blamed himself, not in a neurotic, self-flagellating way, but with genuine reflection. What did I fail to teach this young person that would have prevented this? When people attacked his reputation after he became a monk, accusing him of abandoning his responsibilities, of being selfish, of running away, he never argued. He never defended himself. He simply continued his practice and let his life speak for itself. He wrote, "When someone misunderstands you, instead of arguing, try accepting. When someone opposes you, instead of resisting, try yielding. This is not weakness. It is the deepest strength, because a heart that needs no defense has nothing to fear." The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre famously wrote, "Hell is other people." Most people interpret this as cynicism, a declaration that human relationships are inherently torturous. But the deeper meaning is more precise. Hell is what happens when you hand the keys to your happiness to someone else. When your peace depends on whether your partner approves of you, whether your boss recognizes you, whether your friends include you, then yes, other people become your hell, because you've given them a power they never asked for and can never reliably exercise. The antidote is not isolation. The antidote is releasing the demand. You can love deeply without requiring that love to be returned in a specific way. You can give generously without expecting a receipt. You can be kind without keeping score. When you remove the transactional element from your relationships, when you stop treating kindness as an investment that must yield returns, something beautiful happens. The kindness becomes its own reward. The love becomes self-sustaining. The relationship stops being a negotiation and starts being a shared experience. There's a universal pattern I've seen play out countless times. A wife spends years criticizing her husband. He's not romantic enough, not ambitious enough, not attentive enough. She feels she's given everything and received nothing. Resentment builds like sediment. The marriage becomes a cold war. Then one day, through therapy, through a book, through a crisis, she tries Hang Yi's method. She turns the lens around. Am I attentive to his pressures? Am I patient with his pace? Am I offering the same grace I expect? And when she does, when she genuinely, honestly examines her own behavior with the same sharpness she'd been applying to his, she discovers something startling. He has qualities she'd stopped seeing. The relationship has strengths she'd been ignoring. The problems she blamed entirely on him have roots in her own behavior too. This is not about self-blame. It's about honesty. And honesty, true, symmetrical honesty, is the only soil in which real intimacy can grow. 5. The wisdom of slow. Why patience is power. Hang Yi offered 3 rules for navigating difficulty. Face hard situations with an open heart. Face difficult people with generosity. Face extreme crises with calm. In a culture that worships speed, that treats urgency as virtue and impatience as ambition, these words are almost countercultural. We live in a world that celebrates the person who responds to emails in under a minute, who moves fast and breaks things, who treats every delay as a personal affront. We've confused speed with competence and urgency with importance. Hang Yi saw it differently. He wrote, "The word slow prevents regret. The word retreat prevents disaster. Slowness is not laziness. It is not procrastination. It is the refusal to let panic make your decisions for you. It is the wisdom to recognize that most problems look different, simpler, more manageable, more solvable, after you've slept on them, after you've walked around them, after you've let the initial emotional storm pass and the waters of your mind settle enough that you can see the bottom. The Shurangama Sutra says, when the frantic mind rests, that resting is itself enlightenment. Your restless, anxious, planning, worrying, strategizing mind, the one that's running right now, probably composing a to-do list while it listens to this video, that mind is not your ally. It is a tool. And like any tool, it works best when it's used deliberately, not left running continuously. A chainsaw is useful when you're cutting a tree. It's terrifying when it's running uncontrolled in your living room. Most of the worst decisions you've ever made were made in a state of emotional urgency. You fired off an angry text. You quit a job in frustration. You made a financial decision based on fear. You said something in an argument that you can never unsay. If you had waited, not forever, just long enough for the heat to dissipate, the outcome would have been different. The problem would still be there, but your response to it would be wiser, more measured, more effective. Urgency narrows your vision to a single point. Patience opens it to the full panorama. There's a story about a CEO whose company hit a severe cash crisis. Revenue collapsed. Investors panicked. Employees whispered about bankruptcy. He responded the way most leaders respond, with frantic activity. Emergency meetings, desperate phone calls, sleepless nights. The faster he moved, the more mistakes he made. Deals fell through because he negotiated from desperation. Employees left because they sensed chaos at the top. The crisis deepened. Then a mentor told him something that changed the trajectory. You need 3 days of doing nothing. It sounded insane. The house was burning. How could he stop and meditate? But he was desperate enough to try. He went to a quiet place. No phone, no email, no meetings. For 3 days, he simply breathed, walked, sat in silence, and let his mind settle. On the second day, something happened. With the noise gone, with the frantic activity stilled, he could suddenly see, clearly for the first time in months. The core problem wasn't cash flow. It was that the company was doing too many things, doing none of them excellently. The solution wasn't more deals, it was fewer. He went back, cut the losing divisions, focused the company's energy on its one genuine strength, and led it out of crisis within a year. Those 3 days of slowness saved the company, he said afterward. This is the paradox of patience. It looks like inaction, but it is actually the highest form of action, because it ensures that when you do move, you move in the right direction. A chess master doesn't move quickly. A surgeon doesn't rush. A diplomat doesn't blurt things out. The people who handle the most consequential situations in human life are, almost without exception, the slowest to react and the most deliberate in their response. Hang Yi himself was a model of unhurried living. In his monastery, every day followed the same gentle rhythm: wake, meditate, eat, study, write calligraphy, receive visitors, sleep. When someone asked him, "Don't you feel time is precious? Shouldn't you be doing more?" he replied, "Precisely because time is precious, I move slowly. Rushing wastes time. Patience honors it." 6. Light as water, the art of loving without clinging. Hang Yi wrote, "The friendship of the wise is light as water. Cling to outward forms, and even what is close becomes impossibly far." This is perhaps his most counterintuitive teaching, because we live in a culture that equates intensity with love, that measures the value of a relationship by its drama, its passion, its weight. But think about the relationships in your life that have actually lasted, not the ones that burned bright and fast and left scorch marks on both people. The ones that endured, the ones that survived career changes and cross-country moves and children and crises and the long, ordinary stretches where nothing dramatic happens at all. What do those relationships share? They're light, not shallow, light, not disengaged, light. They breathe. They have space. They don't require constant proof of devotion. They don't demand that the other person be everything to you. They allow each person to be fully themselves, imperfect, evolving, sometimes distant, sometimes close, without interpreting every fluctuation as a crisis. The Buddhist concept of pratityasamutpada, dependent origination, teaches that all relationships arise through the convergence of conditions. Two people meet because 1,000 invisible threads of circumstance brought them to the same place at the same time. They connect because their particular histories and temperaments and needs happen to resonate at this particular moment. And they may someday part. Not because someone failed, not because the love was false, but because the conditions that brought them together have shifted. Acknowledging this isn't fatalism, it's realism. And realism, when it comes to love, is far more sustainable than fantasy. When Hang Yi became a monk, his wife, a Japanese woman named Yukiko, who had followed him from Japan to China out of love, came to the monastery and knelt outside the gates for 3 days, begging him to return. He did not go out to see her. He sent a single message: love is compassion. Many people have judged him harshly for this, called him cold, called him selfish, called him a coward. But consider what he was saying. He was not saying he didn't love her. He was saying that love, at its highest, is not possession. It is not "I need you to stay so I can be happy." It is "I wish you well, even if your well-being requires my absence." It is the willingness to let someone go, not because you don't care, but because your caring is larger than your need. This is extraordinarily difficult. For most of us, love is tangled up with need so thoroughly that we can't tell where one ends and the other begins. We say, "I love you," when we mean "I need you." We say, "I miss you," when we mean "I'm afraid of being alone." We say, "Don't leave me," when we mean "without you, I don't know who I am." And when the other person does leave, as people sometimes do, because people are free agents, not possessions, we feel not just sad, but annihilated. Because we had built our identity on the relationship. And when the relationship ended, so did we. Hang Yi's teaching points to a different possibility. Love that is real precisely because it doesn't cling. Connection that is deep precisely because it is light. A bond between two people who are each whole on their own, who choose to walk together not out of desperation, but out of joy, and who can release each other with grace when the path diverges. His famous song, Farewell, still performed across the Chinese-speaking world over a century after he wrote it, captures this perfectly. It speaks of long roads and ancient pathways, of evening wind through willows, of sunset beyond distant mountains. There is sadness in it, real, honest melancholy. But there is no grasping, no bitterness, no "how dare you leave." Just the quiet acceptance that meeting and parting are both part of the same grand movement, and that a farewell, when it's handled with grace, can be as beautiful as the meeting that preceded it. 7. The full moon, what it means to arrive. On the night before he died, Hong Yi asked for a brush and a piece of paper. With a steady hand, he wrote 4 characters, his final words to the world: flower branches full in spring, moon full in heaven's heart. Then he wrote 2 more words, joy and sorrow intertwined. And then he put down the brush, closed his eyes, and was still. These words are not a riddle. They are a report, a dispatch from someone who has arrived at the place most of us spend our entire lives trying to reach. Flower branches full in spring, the natural world in its state of complete unself-conscious abundance. Every bud has opened, every branch is laden, nothing is held back, nothing is withheld. Life, expressing itself fully without reservation. Moon full in heaven's heart, the inner world in its state of complete luminous clarity. No shadows, no distortion, no cloud between the light and the eye. Pure awareness, seeing everything, clinging to nothing. This is not a state reserved for monks and saints. It is, according to every contemplative tradition in human history, your natural condition, the way your mind actually is when you stop adding things to it. The Heart Sutra calls it prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom. It describes a mind that is not born, not destroyed, not stained, not pure, not increasing, not decreasing. In other words, a mind that was never broken to begin with. A mind that doesn't need to be fixed, improved, or upgraded. A mind that simply needs to be uncovered, freed from the layers of attachment, aversion, fear, and fantasy that we've been piling on top of it since childhood. You might think of it this way. Imagine you've been carrying a backpack your entire life. You started putting things in it when you were very young. Beliefs about who you are, stories about what happened to you, expectations about what should happen next, fears about what might go wrong. Year after year, you added more. Regrets, grudges, ambitions, anxieties. The backpack got heavier and heavier, and eventually you forgot you were carrying it. It just became part of you, part of how life feels. The weight seemed normal. The strain seemed inevitable. Hang Yi's teaching is not add something new to the backpack. It is put the backpack down, not all at once. That would be overwhelming. But item by item. The grudge? Put it down. The regret? Put it down. The need for approval? Put it down. The fear of failure? Put it down. Each thing you release makes you lighter. Each attachment you dissolve reveals more of the spaciousness that was always underneath. And when enough has been released, when the backpack is finally empty, you discover something astonishing. You were never the backpack. You were the sky. Joy and sorrow intertwined. His very last words are perhaps the most human and most honest summation of a life ever written. He didn't pretend to have transcended emotion. He didn't claim to have reached some sterile state beyond feeling. He felt joy, real, profound gratitude for a life fully lived. And he felt sorrow, genuine compassion for the beings still struggling, still suffering, still clinging to their sand. The two feelings didn't cancel each other out. They coexisted because a heart that has been truly opened has room for everything. Clothing. Tea leaves have to unfurl to release their fragrance. A fist has to open to receive a gift. A river has to flow to stay alive. And a human being, a complicated, beautiful, terrified, hopeful human being, has to learn to let go in order to become what they were always capable of being. This is the lesson of Hang Yi's life. Not a lesson in renunciation. Most of us are not going to shave our heads and enter a monastery, and we don't need to. A lesson in release, in loosening the grip, in putting down the stories that aren't serving you, the identities that have become cages, the demands you place on reality that reality was never going to meet. Let go of yesterday, not by forgetting it, but by refusing to let it write today's script. Let go of permanence, not by becoming indifferent, but by loving more intensely because you know it won't last. Let go of control, not by becoming passive, but by trusting that the river knows where it's going, even when you can't see around the bend. Let go of the need to be right, and discover the freedom of being at peace. Hang Yi walked away from fame, wealth, and artistic genius to sit in a cold room and study precepts. And in that cold room, with nothing but a robe and a bowl, he found what the fame and wealth had never given him. Fullness, flower branches full in spring, moon full in heaven's heart. You don't have to walk away from your life to find that fullness. You just have to stop clenching. Open your hand, let the tea steep, let the leaves unfurl, and taste what your life becomes when you finally let it breathe. So let me ask you, and I mean this sincerely, not as a rhetorical device, what are you holding on to right now that's making your life smaller? A grudge? A regret? A version of yourself that no longer fits? An expectation that reality has already proven it won't fulfill? Name it. Sit with it. And then, gently, bravely, one finger at a time, consider letting it go. If this resonated, if something in these words touched the part of you that already knows what needs to be released, then subscribe. Not for me. For the version of yourself that wants to keep going deeper, keep asking harder questions, keep opening. Like this video to pass it forward, because somewhere out there, someone is gripping their sand so tightly their hands are bleeding, and they need to hear that there's another way. And leave a comment. Tell me, what would you let go of tonight if you had the courage? The tea is steeping.
The leaves are opening. Your turn. I'll see you in the next one.